Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
It's the Go Gopher podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 36. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited about this week's edition. Week 2 of the college football season has come and gone, and the Golden Gophers are 2-0 and lead the entire country in most yards gained per game and fewest yards allowed per game. That's a hefty combo. And we have the leader of the University of Minnesota football team, quarterback Tanner Morgan, with us for the first half of our Go Gopher podcast. I know you're going to enjoy going behind the curtain and learning more in detail about the fast start to the season and more about Tanner Morgan, the great person. In our second half of the podcast, it's my pleasure to welcome to the show for the first time the voice of Golden Gopher Volleyball on the radio, Tanner Hoops. You also hear him on our Gopher football radio broadcast each week, providing scores, hosting the halftime show, and doing pre- and post-game segments. Occasionally, you'll also hear him call a Gopher basketball game. We'll get his insight on the 6th-rated Gopher volleyball team, how he spent this past summer calling baseball, and most importantly, we hear his tremendous life story and how he got to where he is and how the University of Minnesota played such a big role. It's Tanner and Tanner in episode 36 straight ahead. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. The Go Gopher podcast with Mike Grimm is also supported by Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. Such an amazing company of Golden Gopher backers. We're so glad to be affiliated with Affinity Plus, a local Minnesota credit union providing all of your banking needs, including a top-ranked mobile app. And they do so much in the community as well. They also sponsor our player profile segment within this podcast, which is coming up and features Tanner Morgan. Our podcast is also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at ChamplinInsurance.com. Tony's a big Gopher fan and can't wait to hear from quarterback Tanner Morgan here in a bit. I invite you to subscribe to our podcast. It's free to click the subscribe button. You can listen for free at any time. You can also go back to listen to previous podcasts. That includes last week's show. We talked with Gopher senior linebacker Mariano Sori-Marin and Gopher beat writer Andy Greeter from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. This week, let's talk Gopher football to start the Go Gopher podcast episode 36. Golden Gopher signal caller Tanner Morgan is our opening guest, and here's our conversation. It's episode 36, the Go Gopher podcast. Mike Grimm with you, and the Golden Gopher quarterback is Tanner Morgan. A return trip. We think you were guest 2 or 3 way back in January when we started this podcast. That was on a Zoom.
Yeah.
You're in person here on campus. Good to see you, sir.
It's great to see you too.
2-0. That's got to feel pretty good 2 weeks into the season.
Definitely a good feeling, but we got to continue to get better. There's a lot of work to do, and we're excited to, continue to do that and continue to look at the ways we can improve. And every week's a championship week, so just focus on this week.
What is that fine line, too, in games like this? I mean, let's face it, you faced a couple teams that are in rebuild modes with first-year coaches, and you did what good teams do, and that's just make no doubt about it. You go out, you beat them. Hopefully you gain confidence, you feel good, you feel comfortable. So feeling good, but also knowing that, hey, the competition's going to stiffen up. And as you mentioned, there are some places that each week, I'm sure coaches point out that not just you personally, but as a group, there's some improvement. So what's that fine line to being confident, but also understanding that, there's places to get better?
Yeah, I think you always have to be confident, right? Because when you're not confident, your chances of succeeding drastically decrease. But you're confident knowing that you've done everything you can to change your best and give yourself the best chance to be successful as a player and as a team, right? And so for us, we're always confident, and, we know that it all comes down to executing the game plan better than we did last week and executing this game plan better than we did the week before that, et cetera. But you draw confidence from preparation. And so when you're prepared, you know what you're doing. It allows you to play confidently. And that's a huge thing. Play confident, play fast, allows you to, use your abilities and talents way better. But you always know that anybody can beat you on any given Saturday, and you have to be at your best each and every week. So you're right. There is that fine line, but when you're not playing confident, the chances of succeeding go way down.
I'll put you on the spot right away here on the Go Gopher podcast.
I love it.
So you're 2-0. You've outscored teams 100-10. And let's face it, there's in the recent past, there's been some close shaves in non-conference games.
Yeah.
Nothing's been close about either of these. You guys were clearly out there. In your mind, are you guys that much better, do you think, than previous years? Did the philosophy change? Like, hey, we're just going to put it to somebody? With the competition different? Where do you think that falls in line with 100-10? That hasn't been the case. Now, you've only lost one non-conference game in your career, so it's
right.
not as if you're stubbing your toe every week, but there's been close shaves over the course of
definitely.
time.
We've definitely, cut a lot of those games close. And I think it comes down to, Coach Fleck really emphasized in a game and also during a season is starting fast, accelerating the middle, and finishing strong, and highlighting that there's been times where we haven't really started fast, and our tenure of being here, we haven't started fast whether we should have. We haven't been ready. And, Coach Fleck had us prepared to play those games through training camp. Our coach did a great job of preparing us, and we just went out there and played ball and executed the game plan. But, learn from your past to create your future, right? Embrace your past. And so we embraced the fact that we weren't, where we should have been at the beginning of the season in years past. And we weren't doing the things that we should have done to win those games. And so Coach Fleck, again, had us prepared to go out these first 2 weeks and really start fast. And it's the players and coaches thing, but, for our player mentality, we just went out there and played ball. Doesn't matter who we're playing. It's about us at the end of the day. We got to be better this week than we were last week. And we have to be at our best and execute. And that's what it's all about from a player standpoint.
Do you think, too, strategically maybe it was a bit more of an aggressive, certainly Saturday, a bit more of an aggressive non-conference game plan? We've seen maybe, I'm not trying to say that like coaches don't want to show anything, but I think there is a point sometimes coaches will say, hey, let's not show too much. And then all of a sudden you're in a tight game where
right.
It looked like, you're throwing bombs to Chris Altman-Bell in the second quarter. You got like a 4-play drive. All of a sudden it's, 28-3. But did you catch a difference there, and just philosophically too, maybe?
Yeah, I definitely think we came out aggressive. And, for us, it's all about, we're a balanced offense from an offensive perspective is, if we need to run for 300 or throw for 300, we can do it, right? And, we have the playmakers. We're prepared to do whatever it's needed to win a game. And, for us, I think in this last week, we had some opportunities to go make plays on the outside, and Coach Soraka put us in situations to go do it, and then our players did it, and that's what it really was all about. And just being aggressive and taking those shots and having those opportunities to go out there and make plays.
Love the third quarter, too. You come out, you get Mo the 100 yards, and then tell him, take his helmet. He's done for the day. I'm sure that's a good feeling. I'm sure if and you had the same thing, and I think a series later where, all right, you're done. And I suppose there's like, gosh, I would like to keep playing, but there also has to be a feeling of gratification. Like, my job's done. I can relax and watch my teammates now the rest of the way.
Yeah, you always want to continue to play, but when you get you get pulled from a game because you're winning, it's a good feeling. You know that the game is in good standings, and then it's exciting to see the other guys go in there and play ball. And that's a cool thing for me to see those guys go out there, spin the rock around, and guys on the outside, go make plays and see different alignment, different backs. It's cool because those guys have earned the opportunity to go do that. And, for them to go in there and play in games to go and do that is pretty cool.
We've seen Cole Kramer, of course, play and have impact, especially in his situation where he would run in short yardage situations and extend drives and melt games away a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen Ethan much other than the spring game in terms of really kind of getting a chance. He got to hand the ball off a couple of times in the opener. I thought it was fun to see him cut it loose, a little 3 bullets. Got clear Gary a couple of times, and then I thought it might have been a touchdown to Dalen, right down to the goal line, and then Ethan got the touchdown. And you've talked about in the past at the quarterback room, in terms of the competition, it's competing with, not against. And you were one of the first guys to pat him on the helmet, Ethan, when he came off the sideline, converting that drive. As a guy who watches that from the sideline, what was your emotion watching him get a chance to show what he could do?
Yeah, I think it was. Man, it was awesome. Just talking to him before the drive is like, hey, man, like, you're ready. Just go play ball. He had a big grin on his face. He's super excited. And then seeing him out there executing the plays, drop some dimes on people and get in there with the QB sneak was awesome. So it was cool to see him go in there, get his first college completion, and then lead the team down there for a touchdown by executing and doing his job. And really playing quarterback, that's what it's all about. And he did a fantastic job, and it was cool to see him do that.
Was the play, maybe you don't want to get too in detail, the play to Brevin Spanford, the beautiful touchdown where he was basically uncovered and then sprinted in, was that a special or is that normally in the playbook?
It's something that, we have. It just depends if, again, anytime you're game planning a team, it depends on if you carry certain things. And so, that week we thought that it was something we could run, and obviously it was successful.
Yeah. So if I remember right, you faked to that side of the field and then rolled opposite and then just spun and looked, and that's I'm assuming how it was all supposed to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it worked exactly how it was. One of those moments where you draw something up and hope it works out that way, and that one certainly did.
A couple of other plays you talked about in the press conference, the overplay to Altman Bell. He got it to the 3, and then the one that maybe wasn't the same route, but it was a similar kind of play to Dalen Wright. You just missed it. I think he got maybe caught between steps. Take me through the exercise of knowing who you're throwing to and how to get it to a guy. And you talked a little about that in the news conference, and I'm fascinated by. You forget all the things a quarterback has to remember: the play, the call for the sidelines, what's the defense look like. And then in the middle of the throw, you're like, oh, this is Dalen. I have to throw him maybe a different look than Chris Altman-Bell or Michael Brown-Stevens or whoever else.
Yeah, I think, we always talk about KYP, know your personnel, and understanding what's their strength. And then, when you have a timing throw, it definitely matters, whether they're running it off steps or yards or whatever it may be, to understand when that guy's going to hit that point of when I need to get the ball out of my hands. And, a guy like Dalen covers a lot of ground really quickly. He's a long strider, very similar to how Rashad Bateman ran his routes, and they eat up a lot of ground really fast. So his deep slant route might be different than Chris's or Mike's. Chris is a super physical runner. Mike's got a lot of feet, a lot of speed. Understanding those guys when you're throwing them deep balls especially makes a big difference. And then understanding too, if it's a timing like an in-breaker and out-breaker, when I need to get it out of my hand is crucial for sure.
As you are through 2 games, what is the comfort level now? To me, and PJ talked about this early, when he first started. I remember even when Demery Croft and Connor Rhoda were battling it out. You were on the scout team, right? That year, I think, the scout team quarterback. And PJ oftentimes would refer, even if the decision necessarily by the quarterback was the wrong decision, he wanted a decisive decision, which sounds almost redundant, but it's not, because you can make a decision indecisively as well. But he wanted a decisive decision. And I think that has been one of your strengths over the years. And I don't know if you got away from it or whatever. I mean, the game's plans were so different. But to me, it looks like you're ready. You know where to go. The ball's been on time, on target. And you just have a comfort to you for the first 2 weeks here. Would you assess that for me?
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I think playing quarterback, there's a lot of split-second decisions you have to make. As long as you're confident, again, like I said earlier, the chances of being successful go way up. And, playing fast and confident in what you're seeing allows you to, most of the time, make a play work. Making a play work could be 2 different things. It could be throwing number 1, or it could be turning down 1 early and getting to 2 based on the coverage. But, I think I'm just super grateful, honestly, that I get to be in this position and be the quarterback here for the Gophers. And, I've had a long career so far, and I'm grateful that I get to be around my teammates every day, that I get to do this. I get to show up and play football every day. And when you think about that, it makes things a lot easier, puts things into perspective a lot better. And, I get to go home and see my wife, who's fantastic. And, God's just been so great to me in my life. And, the fact that he still has me here at the University of Minnesota playing football is something that I don't take lightly. And it's a huge blessing, which I think allows me to just play with a lot of peace, man. And, I feel really good about, the whole off season has been great. And, just understanding what we want to accomplish. And, just a lot of peace in that. And at the end of the day, football's fun, and it allows you to play fun when you play with a clear mind. And it's really what I'm working to do each and every day.
You had so much success early in your career with the run-pass option. And again, I don't know all of what goes into game plans and how it works. It looks like you're back to that comfort level. In between, was it less run-pass option, would you say? Or maybe you don't want to go into that?
Yeah, I think, I think we were – it was obviously a little bit of a different scheme and some things that we were, wanting to do. And we were doing some run pass options, but they were different. And, necessarily the reads were different than what we were looking at. And
you had a good run blocking line.
Yeah. And, we were able to run the ball really well, extremely well. And I think too, that, especially last year, I could have, I think I could have played a lot better. And, obviously schematically it's different. And, again, I feel really comfortable right now. I've learned from the past where I, wasn't at my best and what I need to do to get at my best.
It looks great. I mean, it's fun watching. Even that first pass of the season, I was like, it's almost like you put on the old sneaker, right? It's like just this comfort level look. It's like, whoa, I've seen this before.
Yeah, man.
It was
like,
amazing.
It's like throwing on, the Nike Air Max, the dad sneakers when you're going to cut the lawn or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Just that comfort level for sure. And they're like 6, we'll call them 6-year-old shoes, like you're here.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. A couple grass stains,
So the first, I think it was the first or second pass, it ended up being a sideline route to Altman Bell. I wanted to ask you about this because upstairs, as I'm calling it, Chris had him beat like 4 or 5 steps. So is that was that just a design play to go out, or is that a read? Because I think if he just keeps running, it's a touchdown.
It would have been,
but was that a pre-call? I'm just curious. I'm always fascinated by this.
So we have different routes of when we give guys options. That wasn't one of them. That was a set route based on the way that their alignment was with their corner, and we got the completion, but he would have ran right by the guy. And so it's just like, hey, wish we would have had go called. We got 16 yards. All right, let's go.
Perfect. Yeah. Take the next snap and move on.
Yeah. It's just one of those things you laugh at when you watch the film, like, man, it's too bad we didn't call go.
He had him torched, right?
Yeah. It was a great route.
Yeah. Now, you have, last year you had to throw to a bunch of different guys. Some's out of necessity. Chris was injured and some new guys, and then Dalen missed some time for personal reasons. And now all those guys, you've really been able now to spend another, season with, the off season, and, some of the guys you're clearly familiar with. I think it was 8 different receivers you hit in the opener and something like that again the other day. How do you handle, knowing that you got a few weapons now to feed the football?
It's a pretty good feeling. Yeah. Knowing that we got a lot of guys that we trust in to go out there and make plays, right? And again, for me, it all comes down to just executing the play, and whoever's open, throw them the ball at the end of the day, whether that's a running back on the check down or whether that's a post to Chris or whatever it may be. I'm not in a force mode. I'm just throwing it to the open guy. Yeah. And at the end of the day, give them the ball and let them go do what they get paid to do and go make plays.
And the read's the read, right, at the end of the day. Yeah. So even the first play of the season, because I had a lot of people comment oh, man, it was so great to see him throw, break a tendency, but that could have been a handoff, right? If you read it differently.
Yeah, or if the defense played a different coverage, it definitely could have been a handoff.
So it wasn't. It was nice to see, but it wasn't necessarily you were thinking to yourself, we're going to throw on the first play just to break tendency.
Yeah, no. We were anticipating a certain coverage to that formation where we could get it in there. Yeah. But can't assume. Everybody knows what assuming does, and so at the end of the day, we just anticipated it and we got it. And that's what it all is about. You can't assume. You got to anticipate what the defense is going to do. If they do something different, you got to react to. which is the fun chess match of playing football.
Yeah, and I'm always, as a trying to follow play to play, I'm always fascinated by all of this stuff. And we had Kirk Shiraka on the podcast in the springtime, and I asked him about the Rashad Bateman touchdown that you threw to him in the Penn State game, that touchdown which set the tone for the whole game. Maybe my favorite play, outside of you guys and running it in the axe a couple of times, maybe my favorite play of my time here. And for much of that time, I thought the genius of the play was, well, you brought in the extra blocker, and so they were expecting run, and then you knew that. But then Kirk said, no, the blocking scheme had nothing to do with it. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything then. And he talked about how close that play, the safety actually covered a little better than everybody thought it would, and you just slipped it by. But Shannon picking up the blitz.
Yep. And
then, but it wasn't necessarily, I thought, oh, man, they brought in 6 to fool Penn State. But you just liked whatever the defensive read was.
Yeah.
Walk me through what you remember about that play.
Yeah, so it was one of their zone pressures that they brought that was giving us trouble earlier in the week of, from a quarterback perspective of identifying it, because it's a great disguise.
And they had Micah Parsons, right?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And so Coach Soraka found the tip of how he knew it was coming, and he drew up this play. This is what we're going to call versus this. I'm going to check this play. And then it was a 2Z tail coverage, so the boundary safety has to run all the way to the field and play that deep half. So you have all that green grass because the field corner traps, so he comes inside, and so Rashad runs free for about 20 yards before anybody's near him. Well, that boundary safety took off a little quicker and almost made a play on the ball, but Rashad had great concentration, picked it up, and scored. But it was one of those things where if he saw that, he was going to check this because it's a pressure that could give you trouble, and then we had to answer for it. And he checked it. We got the touchdown, and they didn't run the blitz again.
And that was one of their key over the course of their successful season. Was that blitz package, and they didn't run it again.
Definitely, it was a huge change up for them. That's an aggressive change up because it's a blitz that comes. It's a little unusual, and it looks like you're getting man coverage, and they ended up going to play the 2Z tilt, and we got the touchdown out of it.
It was awesome. What a fun day that was for sure. Let me give a real quick promotional mention here. Affinity Plus is your local credit union, proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. We're glad they're joined us here as a sponsor and a partner on the Go Gopher podcast. As a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, you're eligible to join this financial. It wants to build a meaningful banking relationship. It puts you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide, including right off campus, just on University in Minneapolis, just a block from the stadium. You can learn more or find out other ways to connect with them by going to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by the NCUA, and they do great work in the community and a proud Gopher sponsor. So you mentioned that you were, you go home to your wife now.
Yeah.
Right? You're a married college student. How has that been going? You got married in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is married life treating the young Tanner Morgan?
Oh, man. It's been awesome. Really. I have zero complaints, and, my wife's a rock star, and, she does a fantastic job with everything that she does around the apartment and all that kind of stuff. She's, DIY. She's the best at that. She built like our bed frame, a table, and all this kind of stuff. She's the chairs. So it's fun to go home and see her. I was in training camp and I came home and she had she'd been working like 6 hours on some chairs, and I'm like, man, you're grinding. It's, but it's the best, man. I love being able to get home and to see my wife when all the film's watched and all that's said and done, and just spend some time with her makes life pretty good.
I think you've mentioned publicly before how you guys met. Remind us again how the connection was.
Yeah, so we actually lived in the same building while she was a Gopher, and then I followed her on Instagram. Maybe was not bold enough to shoot my shot earlier on. She was in Australia doing a mission trip. She came like a 3-month missions trip thingy, and came back and shot her a DM that I really loved her faith. I thought it was inspiring to me, and then we ended up talking, and the connection just really started from there, and that's how we met.
That's amazing. Like back in the day, right? You're somewhere and ask if you can take a girl to dinner or buy a drink or whatever. Now it's just sliding into the DMs, right? That's how you youngsters are meeting.
You know, the slide in the DMs led to a date at Cove and Wayzata, and the rest is history. So
that's great. That's awesome. What do you? What is her interest? What is she? You mentioned she, is a woman of faith and had a mission. And what is she up to while the star quarterback is out there getting to practice every day and playing games?
She's currently a full-time nanny,
nice.
and she's great with the kids. So it's always fun for me to watch her and get to be around them sometimes too with the kids. I think it's awesome. They were they walked down the aisle in our wedding, so it was pretty cool. And then she's a graphic designer too, so she's great at all that kind of stuff. So she watches kids and all kinds of graphic design stuff, and she's super talented at that. And she's just a joy to be around, and she lights up any room that she walks in and makes you feel like you've known her for 10 years.
That's awesome. And now your family still gets to come to the games, and they've integrated her into the family too, I suppose.
No doubt. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Now, when you guys do I think you mentioned this, the stadium walk, when you get to the stadium, your mom now, is she in the same spot as she always is?
For the most part. She'll text me like, hey, I'm in the left or whatever it is. I get to see my wife and get to see my mom, which makes things pretty cool.
Yeah. So now you got to get tickets for your mom and your wife.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
No doubt. Well, hey, cool. We will let you go. It's so fun to always catch up. Give us good, kind of lift the curtain a little bit. Give some Gopher fans some thoughts. You have some things too, right, with the NIL. What you got anything cooking that you can promote?
One thing I'd love to promote is if you go on my Instagram, there's a recent post about these custom hats that we're doing to raise money for the Angel Foundation, which is an incredible foundation that provides money to families who have a loved one with cancer, and that's support on information, financially. They're a fantastic foundation. It's something that I'm really passionate about with what me and my family have been through, and so I think to be able to support them is awesome. The hats are awesome too. Nice trucker hats, all kinds of different Gopher colors. Yeah. Some black ones too. But it's a fantastic foundation, and all of those proceeds go straight to the Angel Foundation. So I'll be posting more about it. My wife will be posting more about it on my Instagram. And just type in Tanner Morgan on Instagram. I think it's
search will find it.
Yeah, I think it's T_Morgan too, but I could be wrong.
Okay. We'll find it.
Yeah, we'll find it. But there'll be more information coming out about it. But again, that foundation's awesome, and any support there would be really appreciated.
That's awesome. We also today, for appearing on our show, our sponsor, we mentioned Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union earlier, and they want to support Gopher football and Gopher athletics. So when we get a guy like Tanner Morgan on, we've got $100 prepaid Visa gift card.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
With your wife some night.
There we go. I love it. Awesome. Thank you, Grimmy, and thank you, Affinity Plus.
Good to see you. There he is.
Yeah.
That's Gopher Field General Tanner Morgan. Very impressive. Our thanks to him, and our thanks to Affinity Plus for sponsoring our Gopher Player Profile segment on the Go Gopher podcast. We shift gears and talk Gopher volleyball and other things with Gopher Radio's Tanner Hoops after a word from Tony.
Hey, Gopher fans, this is your State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. We are super excited to be a part of the new Mike Grimm Show on Talk North. For the year of 2022, we will be donating $10 to the University of Minnesota Children's Masonics Hospital for everyone that calls our office or checks in with us online and mentions that they heard about us on Talk North and the Mike Grimm Show. We are really excited again that Mike came on board with Talk North. You can reach us at 763-421-4900. You can find us on the web at champlaininsurance.com. Again, 763-421-4900, or find us on the web at champlaininsurance.com. Roll the boat, Sky Yuma, go Gophers.
Episode 36 rolls on. It's the Tanner and Tanner edition of our Go Gopher podcast with Mike Grimm. Tanner Morgan, the Golden Gopher quarterback in segment 1, and now the voice of Golden Gopher volleyball on the radio, Tanner Hoops, joins us. He also joins us each week on the Gopher football broadcast. And Tanner, good to see you.
Hey, great to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is year 2 for you now with the Gopher Radio Network, and we brought you on board last year to do Gopher Volleyball, the home matches, and then into the postseason. And, of course, you have a big role in our pregame and halftime and postgame shows of Gopher football. And how have you liked your time on the Gopher Radio Network?
Oh, I've loved it. It's great to be back, get back up here. And, year 2, you've got some things that, you can clean up, learn from year 1. So I'm excited to get deeper into this one and get deeper into the season. Football, volleyball, both off to great starts, and really excited to see where both those teams end up.
Yeah, no doubt. Football, of course, you missed week 1 because you're doing baseball in the summer. You're also the voice of the Sioux Falls Canaries. How much fun did you have of following those guys around playing hardball?
I loved it. I'm a big baseball guy, and, it really is a childhood dream where you get to spend every day at a stadium, traveled cool parts of the country, left the country a couple of times. And, I'm appreciative of everybody here that was able to make that work, in the meantime, and help me out. But I tell you what, it was a really, really fun experience, something that I'm going to cherish forever. I look forward to next season. But 100 games in 115 days, that's a grind.
Oh.
So, as much as I enjoy what I do, and believe me, I do, it is cool to get back to a different pace and, not to be calling a game every day. It wears the old vocal cords a little bit.
Yeah, I would think, too. Now, that is a league where you're going to ride some buses, too. I bet there were some long nights on the bus.
There was the overnight trip on my birthday down to Cleburne, Texas, only to get there and none of the equipment's working.
Oh.
I remember that trip in particular. First 3M bus ride of my career came to Gary, Indiana. So, yeah, we've had a few of them, but, you like who you're working with makes it a lot easier.
Well, and there is an association. Of course, one of our great sponsors here of the Go Gopher podcast is Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. And Brian Slipka, is kind of the CEO of all of those things. And he has an ownership stake, his group, in the Sioux Falls Canaries. So it's kind of cool. And what a great group of people to be in charge of the baseball team. And they do a lot of great things, certainly in the Twin Cities. But it's fun that they have a presence in Sioux Falls, too, with the team that you are the voice of.
Yeah, I didn't know that when I applied for it. It was strangely enough, I didn't realize that they had acquired the team. But it was really cool how that worked out. You got to play who with those guys. And Brian is fantastic. His entire staff is. And, he knows everybody is what I'm learning as I come up here. He knows everybody in the cities. And sometimes he'd bring that down with us. We were doing a game about 3 minutes before taking air, about mid-July, and my intern is from Elk River, Minnesota, looks out our broadcast window, says, I think that's Nate Prosser, the old Wild player. I think that's Nate Prosser with Brian Slipka. And I'm like, there's no way. What would he be doing here? So, he steps out for a minute. We're just about to take air, and I step out of the booth and kind of starstruck. There's Nate Prosser and his family there. A couple weeks later, look up during the 7th inning stretch, and there's Chad Greenway on the Jumbotron, leading the crowd and take me out to the bowl game. So it was kind of cool, just to see who he would bring in and kind of bring that flavor down to Sioux Falls with him. And then afterwards, having batting practice at midnight with Chad Greenway and those guys, That was pretty fun too. That's something special.
No doubt. And of course, Prosser has a podcast on this family of podcast on Talk North. And in fact, I think Sunbelt is a part sponsor of that show as well. So certainly connections everywhere, which is kind of fun. And yeah, the Sunbelt people with their serving and giving slogan, it's awesome what they do, and we're glad to have them associated with our podcast here, the Go Gopher podcast. So you're riding the around in the summer on the buses, the Sioux Falls Canaries. What was your highlight moment of the summer in terms of maybe a call or a game?
It's tough to tell. Certainly both of those opportunities were something special for me. I got to call my first pro walk-off in a game where, if you told me that an hour earlier, I would have thought you were insane. We were down 13-2 in the 5th inning and came back to walk off. That to me was something special. It was my first one, plus the way that we did it certainly is a highlight for me. But there's a lot of memories I could go through and list, but that one I think is the one I'm going to go with.
Yeah, great. That's amazing. All right, so let's talk some Gopher volleyball. You have a game, as we tape this on Tuesday afternoon, you have a game to announce on the Gopher Radio Network, and you can find it locally.
Yeah, we've got K-Fan Plus, we got Hot 102, a few of the stations that carry us.
Yeah, very good. And then the Varsity Network app can also be where you can get the Gopher volleyball matches. And so the question is, you've got one Thursday with Pepperdine, and then Saturday with Washington State. This team is off to a 4-2 start. They're ranked 6th in the country, and you think, 4-2, what's going on? Well, it's to like the number 1 and number 9 teams in the country. They're playing a great, tough schedule. What's your impression been so far of the Gopher volleyball team?
I really like this team. And, I said going into the offseason, talking to just a few people, you don't get better by subtracting somebody like Stephanie Samity. How can this team expect to go further without, a player like that? They look a lot more balanced, I'll say that. They look a little more comfortable distributing the ball a little. And I tell you, I really like the upside of this team. Taylor Landfair was the number 1 overall recruit in the country a couple of years ago. She was limited to 9 games last year with abdominal tear. And, we have a really good recruiting class that's come in and made an immediate impact. So I really like this group. I really do. I think they're balanced. I think they're deep. This is a group that, again, the 2 losses this year, they've come to 2 really good teams. You go back to the Texas match, committed 19 service errors in that game. That's unacceptable if you're going to go on the road and beat the number 1 team, but we did out-hit them. A lot of these big programs, we continue to take steps to get there, and really the only thing missing with this program is, that national championship. And I really think we're in the position where we're knocking off enough of these teams. We're playing with these teams to the point where you can consider the Gophers the cream of that crop and right there in the title conversation. I don't think this year's any different.
Yeah, and it's a situation too, right, in the Big Ten that if you're a Big Ten title contender, you're legitimately a national title contender right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The Big Ten for volleyball is no joke. You've got the 4 that I feel like have separated themselves here early on, being us, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Ohio State. I think you've got a tier just below that in terms of teams like Penn State, Purdue, Illinois, maybe Michigan falls in there. But even once you get below that, any team can knock you off. I mean, the Big Ten is no joke. And I always say that for a lot of sports because it's true. You go on the road winning this conference, you got to be grateful for it no matter who you're playing. It's not easy to win in this league. And I know that's the way that Hugh and his staff likes it. They'd rather go through the meat grinder here early so we can celebrate a little bit deeper into December.
Yeah, and I did notice like Penn State, right? They swept. Did they sweep here? They're 8-0. And so they're maybe one of those teams trying to knock on that door to get in that group of 4 that you cited, right?
Absolutely. Penn State is no joke. They've got some really talented players, albeit they lost Russ Rose, the sport's all-time leader, at this level in terms of wins. That being said, they've got a really talented group there. I know they were hit by transfers a little bit, and I think they've surprised maybe even some in Happy Valley with the start they've had this season. But they're no joke, and they're going to be another team that's going to be right there toward the end.
Yeah, no doubt. So what is it like at the Maturi Pavilion? You've got the headphones on. You're calling the play-by-play. It's, a couple of top 10 teams on a given night. What's it like being behind the microphone and calling volleyball?
It's really special. I was excited to have the opportunity to come here and narrate this program story. I had done volleyball for a few years prior, and I tell you, volleyball had quickly become one of my favorites to call even before coming here. And when you get to follow a team like this, that just adds to it. But volleyball really is a special sport. It's one that oftentimes gets overlooked, I know, but it is a lot of fun. This team, the way that they play is a lot of fun to be able to cover. Maturi in and of itself is an atmosphere unlike any other. Tickets are so hard to get. You got the sellouts pretty much any given night. Fans are there early. The gates open at 6 for a 7 o'clock match, and you're struggling to find a seat by like 6:15. It adds a whole different element in and of itself. Student sections are always great, and our game day staff, I tell you, they provide a wonderful atmosphere. Do a great job getting that place ready.
Yeah, and you're right. You're up in the crow's nest, right? So you got the bird's eye view.
Yeah, I love it. Just being able to look straight down, that's my favorite. I don't know about you, but elevated for me. The better you're elevated, the better the broadcast is.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously in football, we're always elevated. But, in hoops, they put us courtside at some places. And I know you have filled in. You've done a lot of games over the years. And for us, you filled in for both men's and women's broadcast. You were down in Asheville last year calling that championship courtside and a few other spots when you were filling in for JG on the women's side. And I prefer to be up off the floor. There's just too much commotion, too many people in the way. play. And obviously our perch at the barn is the best in the league just because you're right at half court and you got a great overhead view. So I'm with you. I like the overhead look. You got the clear view. And quite frankly, you're a little out of the beast of the belly, which can get a little too hectic sometimes in terms of trying to describe the action. Because in my case, I try to describe everything I see, right? Because I can still, even at my advanced age, Tanner, I'm not a youngster like you, I can still talk fast on occasion. And so I try to describe everything. And sometimes when you're courtside, there's so much going on. It's like the computer freezes for a second because you know there's just sensory overload where you're removed from it a little bit from that second deck. And I think you can call a cleaner game. At least that's my thought. I don't know if that's kind of the way you were headed with that thought too.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and to add to that, you're not wearing thick socks at the barn like you would be at the Kohl Center when they throw the tarp over the hockey ice over there. I did that game for Guardsy last year on the women's side of things over there. And, you know, Lynette tried to warn me, but she wasn't kidding.
Yeah, cold down there. Now, for men, they put us in the hockey TV booth, so we do have a bird's eye view, and we're a long ways away. I joke that I need to put my football binoculars back in my broadcast bag when we go to Wisconsin, the Kohl Center. But again, I still prefer that, even though we're a ways away from there. I'm also a space guy. You know, when you work next to a guy who's almost 7 feet, I like space, and sometimes those courtside seats get a little cramped. And so we're up high at Wisconsin, but we have a whole room to ourselves. Like I could host a party if I wanted, and I've been tempted to, because that's what they do in Wisconsin is host a party. It's a big booth, and for radio, we got what we need. So I'm a space guy and an up over the top guy in terms of the view. Is better than courtside and cramped.
Yeah, I'm the same way. You know what we've got there at the bank is wonderful, and what we've got at the barn is wonderful. You know, and we're blessed with fantastic facilities over here, and you know, you go out into not minor league baseball, but low level, unaffiliated partner league baseball is probably the best way to put it.
Yep.
You know, you're not always getting those luxuries, so I do appreciate getting to come back here and getting to sample that again.
No doubt. And you, of course, have roles in our pregame radio show, halftime as well, and then the postgame, indeed. Now, you and I, we sometimes we have to not say stuff like this because people here get mad, but you and I are both native Iowans. And, you know, I am okay with saying that because I've been here long enough, so you probably still get some grief on it. Storm Lake, Iowa, take me through your upbringing because you have had, over the years, some challenges to get to where you are today, and there's a pretty remarkable story behind it.
Yeah, I've lived in Storm Lake, Iowa for most of my life, but Minneapolis has always been somewhat of a second home. I was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome when I was 3 years old. And as it turned out, I don't know if this is still the case, but at the time, there were only 4 research centers in the country that were devoted to Marfan syndrome. And one of them happened to be at the University of Minnesota. And that was obviously the closest. It's about a 4-hour drive. So I had been coming to the university for treatment every year since 1999, sometimes more than once. And, you know, sometimes it would be a good year health-wise, what have you. But, you know, Marfan syndrome, I should explain, it's a connective tissue disorder. The biggest issue or the biggest worry is that your aorta is too large and the fact that it's growing. Once it grows to a certain point, you get the risk of rupture and aortic dissection. In my case, it was still growing at the time I had open heart surgery at the University of Minnesota back in 2016. So what they did is they inserted an artificial plastic aorta, and that's what I'm living with for the rest of my life. Another part of that is, you know, you've got a detached retina, so your eyesight is, you know, really struggling. Anybody who spent time with me, you know, picks that up right away.
Yeah.
You know, there's treatments, there's somewhat experimental surgeries that are still, you know, in its infancy that I have options, have access to if I, you know, choose to go down that road, and it's something I'm still exploring. But it's things like that, you know, and it's something that really is still awfully rare. I think it's more undiagnosed than anything. You know, 20 years ago, hardly anyone had ever heard of it. There were hardly documented cases, and we've come a long way. But, you know, it's all about knowing the signs and getting tested, because I think this is just something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. That, you know, you find cases all the time where somebody gets tested because they have the symptoms and it turns out they've had it. You know, it's not something you catch or that you develop. It's, you know, something that you're born with, you have it or you don't. So I tell you, I've been coming to the university for treatment for, pretty much my entire life, as long as I could remember. And the University of Minnesota quite literally gave me a new lease on life. And that's what makes it more special for me, is being able to come here to a place that, so much my upbringing has been centered around and rooted in, and be able to narrate the athletes' stories here, to be able to be part of the school and give back, doing what I love in the process. To me, that's something I can't understate how special it is.
Boy, yeah, man, you think about that. You're broadcasting from Huntington Bank Stadium and Maturi Pavilion and Williams Arena and what have you, and it's literally just a few blocks from the place that has given you a lease on life, so to speak. You have to think that's pretty cool when you come to work every day and you're just a few blocks away from such a meaningful spot.
Yeah, it really hasn't been lost on me. I go by all these places that, when we would come on campus, I'd always point that out to my parents. That'd be the highlight, getting to see TCF Bank, as it was at the time,
Right.
Metrodome every once in a while. But you get to see all these buildings. And for me, that was the highlight, getting to see all the arenas when I came here for, surgeries or, whatever checkups I had going on. And now to be able to be part of that community, to go in and literally get to live out a childhood dream in those buildings. I can't underscore how special that is.
Well, I was, I grew up in Manchester, Iowa. You're across the state in Storm Lake. When I was 7, 8 years old, I decided I was listening to a guy named Ron Gonder, who eventually was my boss for 7, 8 years in Cedar Rapids, was my first radio job. Listen to him do games, and that's what I said I wanted to do. And I feel blessed to be able now to tour the Big Ten, to represent the University of Minnesota. What got you involved at a young age? What made you say, yep, I want to also be on the radio?
I tell you, I thought it was the coolest job ever. I really did for a long time. And early on, it felt like a way that I could stay involved, be a part of something, because, I was a sports guy growing up, and, I always prided myself on my ability to know stats, memorize rosters, things like that. And I tell you, I wanted to play. I really did growing up. I remember, I was just a manager for some little league teams growing up. And, one time the newspaper didn't print my name in the rosters, growing up. And, that was heartbreaking for me. I was just a manager, and it felt like a way I could, stay involved. And as I, went along, realized I had a talent for it, that it's something that I could pursue pursue farther as a career than I ever could as an athlete. And I had some people that were wonderful to me, that I was very blessed to be able to meet, yourself included, that, helped me, give this opportunity to continue to, enhance my craft and grow and climb the ladder. So I've met some wonderful people along the way that helped make that childhood dream something real. And going back, if I had my choice, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
As things have turned out, I'm really blessed. I'm really thankful for how things have worked out.
Yeah, you and I first met, was it 2018 or so, or was it before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, about in that time frame. You came up to a game from Storm Lake to Williams Arena, I remember it, Minnesota and Iowa, and I remember taking you around. I introduced you to Fran McCaffrey and Gary Dolphin, our great buddy now, who is the Iowa radio announcer, and you got to meet those guys and chat with a little, and then you were up, I think you sat up at our radio spot for a minute or two, and I remember that. And then, were you a student? Were you a high school, or were you in Buena Vista at that time?
I was in college at the time, so that was my senior year of college. I was cold calling everybody I could find. I was going through directories for all these different leagues, different sports. I came across the Learfield General Managers directory and sent an email to pretty much everybody I could find, and most of them didn't respond. A few of them got back, said, "Thank you for your interest. We don't have anything right now." Greg Gerlach, of course, here is the wonderful guy he is, was kind enough to reach out back and say, "We don't have anything open right now, but would you be interested in a job shadow? We'd put you on with our guys for the Hawkeye game that's coming up tomorrow." And I jumped at the opportunity. So came up to Minneapolis the next day, skipped school in the process. And, I got to meet you, Spencer, Gary, and Bobby on the other broadcast. Fran McCaffrey, of course. Patino was the coach at the time, got to meet him. And I tell you, that was a big step forward into, landing this position, because when our friend Corbu took off for St. Thomas and advanced his career there, Greg remembered me and reached out, asked if this was something I'd be interested in, and everything kind of came full circle from there.
Yeah, amazing. And then, so from that point, you're at Buena Vista in Storm Lake, your hometown. See, I'm Iowa Conference too, Luther College. So I remember I have cousins actually who went to Buena Vista and played basketball there back in the day. And from there, was it Michigan? You got your first job?
Yeah, so I had a stop in Duluth. During the summer of 18, I went up there and did Northwoods League baseball. From there, I got my first full-time year-round opportunity was with ESPN Radio's affiliate in Marquette, Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. And I tell you what, I was there for 2 years, loved it. Marquette and the UP just kind of has its own vibe.
Yeah.
Reminds me a lot of Minnesota in a lot of ways. And I tell you, that was the job that I just loved. I was hosting a daily show, doing some play-by-play, some work with Northern Michigan University. It's a great hockey school out there. Loved it. Had some cool guests on the show and met some cool people. Went to Craft Hockeyville a few years ago when that was doing its thing back in 2019. And it was a job I could have stayed at for a long time. I really, really loved my time up there. And I still miss the UP. I'm hoping to head back here before long, see some old friends. But of course, the world shut down. That job didn't survive COVID, and it was heartbreaking. But had an opportunity elsewhere. Took a front office, non-broadcast job in the United States Hockey League for a year. It was fine. It wasn't what I wanted to do going forward. And had this opportunity, and the opportunity with Sioux Falls after that. You're bouncing around between two cities during the year. I know there's some logistics that go to that, but I'm really thankful for how things worked out and where I am right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you mentioned, I wanted to ask you this, and you and I have never discussed this, so if you don't want to discuss it, you don't have to, but you're right. I have noticed, in your vision, you have to, to see a score, when you do the scores, and maybe, you hold the phone up real close to your face. It's a retina issue. So how I guess I'm going to ask it as bluntly as I can. How can you do this job? It's amazing. I marvel at it all the time.
I really appreciate it. No, and you're right to ask it. The thing is, I always use my phone. People ask, why don't you use laptops for things like that? It's like, it's phone. It's just easier to bring to your face for me. It always has been. It's just all I've ever known. It really is. I see how people, are supposed to read your phone and do everything. And, it's all I've ever known. I've just kind of adapted that way. You'll see me if I'm doing an indoor sport, using binoculars, basketball, volleyball. I use binoculars all the time. It can make it a little more difficult when it's courtside. So it's another reason I appreciate that elevated view.
Yeah.
But to me, I've never known any difference, just about adapting and doing what works to get the job done.
It's amazing. Yeah. So like if you're doing volleyball, you'll have binoculars to call some of that action.
Yeah. I mean, I do my darndest prior to the broadcast, to watch some old tape and get an idea who's going to be playing what side of the floor. They're going to be a front row, back row player, and just kind of get an idea of who could be playing where, what zones they typically cover. And, as you get to know these players, and I feel like I know our Gopher athletes pretty darn well, you see enough of them that you don't need the jersey number, that, you know who they are. But, it's a challenge. Every game has its own set of challenges, but I don't think that's any different for somebody, who can see as you're supposed to. I think every broadcast comes with challenges, and it's something I've, just found ways to deal with over the years.
It's such an amazing thing. It really is. And a tip of the cap, because you got a bright future for sure. And, to fight through some of the stuff you have, and to be able to be here in Minnesota, the place where you mentioned, literally, you're on a table and they're operating on your heart. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. And again, I can't say enough about how much it means to me to be here. This is a special school. This always has been a second home for me. Minneapolis, I've got plenty of family around here. We'd come up for Christmas and what have you. And, some of the most influential people in my career, are right here within the Minneapolis market. This is home for me. It really is. So we'll keep that Iowa blood in us, what have you, and maybe keep that to ourselves when needed. But no, this is home for me, and I love being here and being a part of what we have.
Yeah, we love having you, man, and we will see you Saturday for football when the Golden Gophers play host to Colorado. People will hear you Thursday when the Golden Gopher volleyball team's on the radio taking on Pepperdine, and then you've got the game after football. You're going to hightail it over to Maturi Pavilion, and it's Minnesota and Wazoo, and you'll have all the home matches all year long, the Varsity Network app, also KFAN Plus here locally in the Twin Cities. Hey, thanks for coming on the podcast. Let's do it again a few weeks down the road.
Hey, appreciate you, Mike. Always great talking to you.
My thanks to the voice of Gopher Volleyball, Tanner Hoops, and what an incredible life journey and inspiring story. Hope you enjoyed that. Also, props to Minnesota quarterback Tanner Morgan for offering his inside insight to us here on the Go Gopher Podcast, episode number 36. The Go Gopher Podcast is sponsored by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. Again, we welcome our new partner, Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, your local credit union throughout the state of Minnesota. And we're also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please be sure to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast right now. It's free to listen at any time. Please also share the link on your social media channels so others can also listen. We'll talk again next week.